The laughter started the moment Mara Ellison stepped off the transport shuttle. It wasn't cruel laughter, not entirely. It was the kind that comes from genuine disbelief, from creatures who simply could not process what their compound eyes and sonar-sensitive ears were telling them. A human. On Outpost Vareth 9. Assigned to the Galactic Coalition's most elite combat regiment. "Is that a child?" hissed Sergeant Drex, a Vorith warrior whose 4 muscular arms were each capable of crushing durasteel. He stood nearly 3 meters tall, his chitinous armor plates gleaming under the twin suns. "Worse," muttered Lieutenant Foz, her bioluminescent skin flickering with amusement. "It's a human female. They're the soft ones." Mara heard every word. Humans always did. That was one of the things the galaxy kept forgetting about her species. They had been shaped by millions of years as prey animals on a death world. Prey learns to listen. Prey learns to notice everything. She squared her shoulders, all 5'6" of her, adjusted the strap of her pack, and walked toward the briefing hall without breaking stride. The regiment was called the Iron Verdict. 47 soldiers drawn from 23 species, each one a decorated veteran of conflicts that had reshaped star systems. They had fought the Nekthari swarm at the siege of Dunara. They had held the line at the Crimson Breach when 6 other regiments had fled. And then Command had sent them a human. Commander Kale Vera said nothing when Mara entered the briefing room. He simply watched her from his position at the head of the table, his massive reptilian frame utterly still. Kale Vera was what xenobiologists called a Sarthi apex, the top of his species' predator chain, a creature evolution had spent 400 million years perfecting as a killing machine. 7 feet of scaled muscle, retractable carbon fiber claws, and a neural threat assessment system that could calculate the danger level of any organism within seconds. His threat assessment of Mara Ellison, 0.3 out of 10. He had assessed rocks higher. "Recruit Ellison," he said, his voice a low harmonic that vibrated in the chest. "Take your seat." She did. And she didn't flinch when Drex accidentally knocked her water canteen off the table. She simply picked it up. Didn't look at him. Didn't react. Kale noticed that. The first week was designed to break her. Not officially. Officially, it was standard integration training. But Iron Verdict had an unofficial tradition: every new recruit was tested until their true ceiling was found. And the regiment had quietly agreed that Mara Ellison's ceiling would be visible from the ground floor. They were wrong. When they ran endurance drills in the nitrogen-heavy atmosphere of Vareth 9's lower basin, conditions that made most species sluggish and nauseated, Mara pulled ahead by the second hour. Vorith warriors, built like siege engines, began dropping behind her. "How?" Foss demanded, gasping, her bioluminescence gone pale. "Your lung capacity is inferior," Mara agreed, not even breathing hard. "So I've been training in it since I arrived. I depressurized my quarters 3 days ago and slept in them." Silence. "You voluntarily slept in toxic conditions?" "My planet's atmosphere used to be worse." She shrugged. "We adapted." The second test came from the wilderness. Vareth 9's outer zones harbored indigenous megafauna, massive, territorial, and extraordinarily dangerous. The regiment used the outer zone as an obstacle course. Creatures were not to be engaged, they were to be avoided. Getting cornered by local wildlife was considered a failure of tactical awareness. On day 11, Drex led a training patrol that accidentally left Mara behind near the feeding grounds of a Vareth Crusher, a 6-ton ambush predator with armored hide that standard-issue rifles could barely dent. They expected to hear screaming. Maybe a distress beacon. Instead, 40 minutes later, Mara walked back into camp. Alone. Unhurt. "Where's the Crusher?" someone asked. "About 2 kilometers north, sleeping." She dropped her pack. "I need food." "Sleeping?" She poured herself a ration pack and ate standing up. When a mega predator charges, it expects prey to run. Running triggers pursuit instinct, they're wired for it. I didn't run. She paused. I also didn't freeze. I stood my ground, made direct eye contact, and matched its threat display. Held the posture for 4 minutes until it recategorized me as a non-prey entity and lost interest. The table was completely silent. For minutes, Foz whispered. You stood in front of a crusher for 4 minutes. Humans have a word for that, Mara said. We call it Tuesday. Kale Vera had been watching all of it. He watched when she filed her complaint about Drex's sabotage, formally, professionally, with full documentation, and then immediately resumed working alongside him without visible hostility. He watched when she stayed awake for 61 hours straight to learn the Vorth tactical dialect so she could communicate directly with the regiment's largest unit. He watched her study every soldier's weakness, not to exploit it, but to position herself where she could compensate for it. He ran his threat assessment again on day 16. 4.7 out of 10. He recalibrated his sensors. Ran it again. 4.7. That was impossible. That number had moved. In 16 days. His assessment had never moved for any recruit in 30 years of command. He called her into his office. She sat across the table from him, calm and still in a way that, he was beginning to realize, was not passivity. It was conservation. Humans, he was learning, didn't waste movement. Every gesture had purpose. Your threat rating has increased, he said. I know, she said. He studied her. You knew I was assessing you. You assess everyone. It's in your biology. Sarthi Apex never fully stop threat mapping their environment. Your pupils dilate 0.3 millimeters when you're actively scanning. She met his vertical slit gaze without hesitation. I've been working on the number. Something shifted in Kale Vera's chest. Something very old and very deep, the part of his brain that had been honed over evolutionary eons to recognize one thing above all else. A worthy predator. Most soldiers, he said slowly, try to appear less dangerous to put me at ease. I know, Mara said again. That strategy doesn't work on apex predators. You don't respect weakness. You tolerate it, at best. She folded her hands on the table. I'm not here to be tolerated, Commander. The moment the regiment saw it, the moment everything changed, was during the siege simulation on day 22. The scenario was a disaster from the first minute. Half the regiment was pinned down. Comms were scrambled. Drex's unit was cut off in the northern corridor. Foz had taken a stun hit and was cycling in and out of consciousness. The simulation's AI was running a perfect encirclement. And then Mara's voice came through the channel, low, even, absolutely certain. Drex. Pull left, 8 meters, prone position. Now. Drex hesitated for 1 second, then obeyed. A simulated energy burst swept through the exact space he'd been standing. Foz. Don't stand. Roll right, trigger your smoke on my mark. A pause. Mark. One by one, she threaded them through the collapse. She had memorized the AI's tactical patterns for 3 days. She had built a mental map of every soldier's position, speed, and physical limitation. She had been waiting for exactly this kind of unraveling chaos, the kind her species had survived for 10,000 years of brutal, unforgiving history. When the simulation ended, Iron Verdict had not just survived. They had won. The briefing room was quiet for a long time afterward. Then Kale Vera stood. All 7 feet of Sarthi Apex evolution. The creature that had never, in 30 years, made this gesture to any being outside his own species. He placed his right fist against his chest, the Sarthi salute. Given only to equals. Soldier Ellison, he said. Not recruit. Soldier. The room followed him. 46 fists against 46 chests. Mara looked at them all for a moment. And then, only then, she allowed herself the smallest smile. "I've been waiting," she said quietly, "for you all to catch up." Later, when Foz asked her if she'd been afraid during any of it, the crusher, the ambush, the 4 minutes of staring down 6 tons of predator, Mara thought about it honestly. "Yes," she said. "Every time." "Then how?" "Humans are afraid of everything," Mara said. "We always have been. We're small. We're slow. We have no natural armor, no venom, no thermal resistance." She looked out at Varith 9's alien sky. "But we've been afraid for so long that the fear just became fuel." She picked up her rifle and headed back to training. "Fear is the oldest human technology," she said over her shoulder. "We just learned to run it." Somewhere in the galaxy, a species was laughing at the next human recruit stepping off a transport shuttle. They would learn. They always did.